Shaft's big score, a 1972 American blaxploitation action crime film starring Richard Roundtree as Private Detective John Shaft, the second entry in the Shaft film series, with both directed by Gordon Parks, with the screenwriter Ernest Tidyman reprising their roles from their first film. This one also stars Moses Gunn and Drew Bundini Brown.
Yeah. Willie.
And features acting veterans Joseph Mascalo, Julius Harris, and Joe Santos. This film was produced on a budget of just short of $2 million, which was 3 times its predecessor, and features John Shaft as he deals with a $250,000 that was up for grabs from his friend who died in an explosion. And then John Shaft is dating his sister, and his friend's partner needs the $250,000 because he owes a gambling debt. It all boils down to a 20-minute epic chase scene that goes from cars to helicopters to on foot, all in head to toe leather, as only Richard Roundtree can do it. In Shaft's big score, brought to you tonight on the Micheaux Mission by our very special guest, David F. Walker, in the summer of comics. David, what say you of Shaft's big score?
All right. Well, I love this movie.
Okay.
Right? I like all 3 Shaft movies, including Shaft in Africa. I think it's got its merits. I argue with people a lot because I think Shaft's big score is better than Shaft.
There it is.
Hot take.
It moves at a faster pace. Everything is bigger. The action is bigger. The character is larger than life. You talk about that 20-minute chase at the end, and it's like, yo, where is this coming from? Right? And even down to Gordon Parks' direction, which is, I think, is more assured, more self-assured. I think that as a film director, that's his best movie, right? I think Shaft is his second best movie, but then when you watch like Leadbelly or Super Cops, you're kind of like, he didn't quite have it. I don't recall who the director of photography / cinematographer for Shaft's big score is. I do believe it's the same person who shot Shaft. But like, it's almost amazing to see how much bigger and better, and obviously they had more money. Like, this is them breaking out of the limitations of what that whole, Shaft helped usher in what we now call blaxploitation, right? It wasn't the first blaxploitation movie. It wasn't the first of those 70s black action movies, but it was really the one that sort of solidified that, and Sweet Sweetback in 71 solidified where everything was going to go, right? But Shaft's big score to me is like the pinnacle of it. I don't think that you can look at Fred Williamson's movies, you can look at Jim Brown's movies. They're all trying to do what Shaft's big score did more than what Shaft did, right? But again, people argue with me. They love Shaft more than they love Shaft's big score, but I sometimes think they just love the idea of Shaft more. Because this is where I'll go even further. Like, as much as I love Isaac Hayes' theme to Shaft, man, O.C. Smith's theme to Shaft, Blowing Your Mind, that song, and it opens, he's in the car, and he's like, baby, blow your mind. Like, if you had never seen Shaft, you didn't have to see Shaft to see Shaft's big score, right? And in that way, it was kind of like a Bond movie. In a lot of other ways, it was like a Bond movie. You didn't need to see From Russia with Love or Dr. No to see Goldfinger, right? Goldfinger still worked. Shaft's big score still works without Shaft, right? And I find myself I watch Shaft's big score like maybe once every couple of years, but I don't watch Shaft. Like, when I watch the original Shaft, a lot of fast forwarding, right? I love to see
it's a slower
Moses
film.
Gunn and Drew Bundini Brown. But that, to me, Shaft seems like Gordon Parks really figuring out how to be a filmmaker. Like he'd already
Yes.
done the learning tree, but there's that scene in Shaft's big score that takes place at the nightclub
Mm-hmm.
where the like you got the go-go dancers
In the
and
fight,
the
yep.
mafia dudes are beating the hell out of Shaft. The way that's shot and edited and the music with that is like that's some of the best 70s. That sequence right there is just beautiful. So I love that movie. And unashamedly so. And I think, you guys were talking about Richard Roundtree in the One Down, Two to Go episode, and trying to figure out what are Roundtree's best movies.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Man Friday? Is it Charlie One Eye? It's Shaft's big score. It's really Shaft's big score. So yeah, that's my feeling on the movie. I'm done. I'm out.
Ah. Lynn?
It's interesting that you bring up the scene at the club with the go-go dancers and how that is cut and edited with the fight in the alley. And shout out to Gordon Parks and Ernest Tidyman, and see what happens when you get a real writer writing a screenplay. That, the one thing you would never see in a Fred Williamson or a Jim Brown movie, you would not see the hero thrown into the trash. You would not see them getting totally beat up, taking an L. You would not see that. So shout out to them, because Shaft takes an L in that scene. But conversely, I do think that this is Gordon Parks' best performance as a director. The scene that I shout out is like when the movie starts. I think it's considering how much, when you think about Shaft, you think about the music, you think about the movement, you think about Richard Roundtree and his presence. But this movie starts dead silence.
Yeah.
And it's just this guy at the safe, and it's and it's very noir. It's playing with shadows. It's a smoky cigarette. And it's very, very methodical in its movement. That is the scene that I keep coming back to on this movie. And there are other scenes like that. There's a love scene in this film that is at the beginning of it. It's like you saw that in this room, in this apartment, there was like this archway that had like these kind of like these mirrored tiles on it that were kind of like in a cross-hatching type of way. And that love scene, it starts with filming the bodies via the mirrors.
Right.
And I thought that was
stylized.
It
absolutely.
was so
very tasteful,
very tasteful, especially with the music that was playing there. That was smartly done. But that scene, that love scene, and going to the fight scene, they both have great elements, but then it loses something. Because that love scene, it started there, and then it just went into like some weird like crossfades and stuff that totally lost the illusion that it had set up. The fight scene that you're talking about, I got what he was going for with the go-go dancers and the fighting, but for some reason he chose to have the go-go dancers in regular speed.
Right, and it was kind of the slow-mo.
The fight in the slow-mo, and that with the music, it didn't work.
Okay.
I knew what he was going for. That along with the editing, it didn't work for me. And I also saw some of the staging of that fight. This is the early days. You don't really have like, fight choreography like we would have in the 80s and 90s. Right. At this point, this is just guys, hey, you're going to throw fists at each other and you're going to throw him, throw this. So the staging of that was a little poor. So I kind of wanted more in that moment. So that kind of like left me cold. I hear you on O.C. Smith at the beginning. It is banging. Gordon Parks does the music for this one, and he says he puts it out there that he was inspired by your man Miles Davis.
Sure,
for the sound, more of a jazzy up-tempo sound. And it does work for the movie. It does. Like David said, if you had never heard of Isaac Hayes' theme, you'd have been fine with this music.
Right.
But Isaac Hayes' theme is so iconic. You want to hear it at least a little bit in this movie.
Right.
You know, you're almost kind of like waiting for it, you know? Waiting for the moment that is right for, oh, here it is. Because this is the Shaft moment.
Right.
You know?
Right. You assume at the end
something
they're going to drop it in.
It's going to drop, especially after this 20 minutes of him running around, you know, dodging bullets like he's on a G.I. Joe cartoon.
Like he's James Bond. He was James Bond at that point.
Well, at one point, Wendy asked me, how's the movie going? I said, well, Richard Roundtree is in top to bottom black leather and he's fighting a helicopter. So
yes, and he won.
Yeah,
and he won.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like left me a little cold. And also, I will say this, especially and I got to give it a demerit, especially because the film was written by Ernest Tiedemann, who wrote the books.
Yes.
So he's the Shaft guy.
Yeah.
This film does big up Shaft to almost James Bondian levels, which is where the movie, the MGM wanted to go with the character. But it does that without giving you anything new about John Shaft. Mm-hmm. I think the reason why David's comic book Shaft is so well done is because there really is nothing in the movies that really tells you about this character. And I'm not saying we had to have his origin story.
Sure.
But learn just something new about the character. Expand that world a little bit. If you now are saying it's worthy of a sequel, it's worthy of this character that we want to be invested in, just give us a little bit more of this guy.
Well, see, in some ways, I think you're speaking to something that David said about fans of Shaft that are more invested in the idea of Shaft.
Okay.
In my mind, what made this so strong? Because I enjoyed this immensely.
Okay.
And I thought what made this so strong was, and I'll take a different lesson from Shaft, A Complicated Man. I enjoyed the fact that, much like that, it seemed like it was in the tradition of the aforementioned Chester Himes, where you have this character, and he is this private detective, this protagonist, but almost a character almost as big as this figure you're following is the environment.
Okay.
And I think what this does better than Shaft is that it allows us as the viewer to know this world. Like as you said, that when the film comes on, the film isn't really about Shaft. Mm-hmm. The film is about this case.
Yes.
And as you said, this is someone who is, we come to find out fairly quickly, because I think the script is pretty efficient.
Yes.
With getting information across, where this is someone who is the numbers runner in Queens.
Yeah.
And his rival has taken him out. But Queens is a different location than Harlem, which we saw in Shaft. And in one of the very, very smart moves that this film makes, as you said, it brings back Moses Gunn as Bumpy with his, with his right-hand man, Willie. And I think they're both used very well. You get this very organic connection to the mafia, sort of Italian mob, which at this point, by 72, you already are moving into the stereotype of the man and the mafia and this, that, and the other. But I thought it treated it really organically. Not for nothing, I love this mobster. Like I thought this was a pretty well...
He was fleshed out.
Yeah, pretty fleshed out mobster. I don't know how much I need to know about John Shaft. Because to use I'll just use your framing against you. How much do you ever really learn about James Bond? Like this is who he is. This is his agent. This is who he is. And I thought this film worked really well. And what I ended up saying, and I'm going to keep pulling Chester Himes, in my mind, this isn't a sequel to Shaft so much as it's a sequel to Cotton Comes to Harlem. Like, you really do have this 70s hard-boiled environment that you now have this detective moving within. And much like you all, Shaft getting his ass kicked, Shaft, like he really is more in this PI tradition, in this sort of this noir tradition than the phenomenon of Shaft allowed him to be in. I loved all of the performances. You know me. I immediately said, "Who is that?" when Kathy Emery shows up as Rita.
Yes.
And in a film with Richard Roundtree, who, legitimately, when he's in his pocket, is one of the most beautiful human beings on earth. Mm-hmm. She's as beautiful as he is.
Yes, she is. Yes,
and the fact that she could, there's a moment towards the end where she's driving and she has on a fur hat.
Yeah.
And he's shooting.
I will say that's a good.
And I said, well, hell, this is the movie I want right here.
Yeah.
With these two. And I'm a little annoyed with you, David, because I was keeping my hot take. Like, I was ready to come in with my hot take that I think Shaft's big score is also better than Shaft. Here's the thing, though. When you actually start reading criticism, that's not as hot of a take as you'd think. Like, there's a fair number of critics who have said, as films, Shaft's big score is a better film than Shaft. Like, I think Shaft is the phenomenon. Lynn, I 100% agree with you. I think the biggest misstep is the ignoring of the theme. Like it's like even if you just get a couple of strains of the orchestra at the beginning, like just like that's all you need. But even with that, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I really, really did.
I'll tell you, one of the things I like about the show, and I like the dynamic between the two of you, is that neither of you are wrong and neither of you are right. Like, you both raise these really valid, you're like the new version of Siskel and Ebert, right? Where it's like, you can't necessarily disagree or agree, but because you both raise some really valid points. And I think for me, in my appreciation for Black film in general, but Blaxploitation in particular, was like, I would watch these movies so intently, and for one thing, there's so many bad ones, right?
Yes.
So that when you get one that's good, you're almost like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing something good. And then you start picking it apart.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with Shaft and Shaft's big score and Shaft in Africa, part of what you're seeing and what a lot of people don't realize is this is the end result of a lot of conflict behind the scenes, right?
Sure.
So, Tidyman was he had problems with the first movie. Him and Gordon Parks didn't agree on a lot of things with the first movie. And he wrote the second movie. I don't know how many rewrites were done by other writers. I'd have to sit down and do the research on that. But Tidyman is out of the picture by Shaft in Africa, and so is Gordon Parks. And you see MGM trying to do something. They're trying to replicate the James Bond thing, right? And while I enjoy Shaft in Africa for what it is, what I really appreciate about Shaft's big score, and I was joking again before we went live, like, I've been watching a lot of Kojak recently, and during the pandemic, I had gotten into watching a lot of old 70s detective TV shows, whether it was Starsky and Hutch or Columbo, both private detectives and police detectives. And when you watch Shaft's big score, more so than Shaft, you really see like what's about to come in a lot of the TV stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Shaft's big score is essentially like has a lot of the trappings of say an episode of Kojak, only without Kojak, right?
Right.
It's you watch these and because I become obsessed with Kojak right now. Me and one of my best friends get together every Saturday and we debrief over the episodes we've watched, right?
Oh my
Um,
God.
and
One of us.
and yeah, and what you see in a show like Kojak is the show is about Kojak and the police, but you know that there's another story there, and you're only seeing bits and pieces of that other story. And that's sort of what Shaft's big score reminds me of now as I'm seeing it. It's like, oh, you're seeing that other story, right? Because on a show like Kojak, Moses Gunn would only be on it for like 5 minutes total.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And and I think that there's like again, Shaft's big score is just a bigger movie, and so we're seeing more things. Um, and but at the same time, we couldn't have gotten there without the first Shaft
Of
movie, right?
course.
So it's this it's not like I hate the first one because I do love it, you know. Uh, and I especially love Moses Gunn and Drew Bundini Brown in it. Um, and what I think more than anything is that Gordon Parks Sr., who directed the first two Shaft movies, he wasn't the only black director during the 70s. There was a handful of others. And I'm not going to go so far as to say he was the best of the black directors, but you could tell he really cared. He
Right.
was really trying to do something. He was trying to do something really artistic. And and I feel like Shaft's big score was him. They gave him more the keys to the kingdom
Yeah.
based on the success of Shaft, right?
Yeah.
I also think what's really similar, and I don't know if you have done this, is is Gordon's War, directed by Ossie Davis,
Not
compared to
yet.
Cotton Comes to Harlem,
Hmm.
also directed by Ossie Davis, and and you see that a similar dynamic there, right? You see, um, there's a more assured filmmaker there, and like I don't, neither of you have probably ever seen Countdown at Cucini, which is the movie Ossie Davis did in between um, Cotton Comes to Harlem and Gordon's War, because it's you have to go to UCLA to see it in the special archives, and it's like um, when you watch when you for me when I watch Gordon's War, I see, oh, this dude came into his own here, right? Like
Okay.
I love Cotton Comes to Harlem, but Cotton Comes to Harlem and Shaft are similar in that they're I'm not going to say they're exploring new territory, but they're exploring territory that hadn't been explored since like say the 30s or 40s with
Right.
the
Yeah.
Black Past movies. It's a new spin on that, but then the movies that followed 72, 73, 74 were filmmakers getting to build on the promise of
Right.
the stuff that we saw in decades earlier. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people don't do is when they're looking at black film is contextualizing it with what came before
Yeah.
and
Right.
understanding that, you know, without Jim Brown in the split in 68, you're never going to get Jim Brown in Slaughter or
Right.
Slaughter's Big Ripoff, right? It one thing leads to another. Um, but Shaft's big score, like everything you're saying about some of the downsides to it are true. But man, that movie's just fun.
Yeah.
It's like when he's
Yeah.
got the machine gun or is it machine gun at the end when he's running through the shipyards and the
That's a
helicopter.
great scene.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous,
Yes.
and it's here's what I put forth. It's only ridiculous because John Shaft is played by Richard Roundtree, black man. If you saw Sean Connery or Roger Moore doing this, we don't think it's ridiculous. It's James Bond. It's
Right.
okay, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
and Shaft's big score to me is like because the one black exploitation movie that nobody talks about as being a black exploitation movie, there's like three of them, but one of them is Live and Let Die, the James
Yes.
Bond.
We that's because we haven't talked about it on camera.
Yes. But it is like when you watch Shaft's big score and then you watch Live and Let Die, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. So that over the top hyperbolic quality that Shaft's big score has, and I'll say this too. This is a theory that I have because they spent more money on Shaft's big score and then Shaft in Africa than they spent on Shaft. I think that that's in some ways what killed the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Because they spent too much money and then the movies stopped making as much money.
Yeah.
And then you get the TV show. The TV show would have been better if the movies had spent less money and made more money, if that makes sense. It's the Shaft TV show, and I'm not saying this in a way that's meant to sound racist or anything, but the Shaft TV show is like the Planet of the Apes TV show. It's like they were tired of spending money on the movies, and so you get this watered down thing. And the Planet of the Apes TV show is like, what am I watching? Like, I love,
Right. I don't want to lose this. Speaking of the procedurals, and as you can tell, the two Chester Himes adaptations from the 70s were on my mind this afternoon. Something we talked about with Come Back Charleston Blue is you get this really complicated relationship between the black protagonist, the black hero, but instead of this sort of stodgy white captain and white policeman, you now have a black captain.
Yeah.
And we talked about it when we talked about Come Back Charleston Blue, that we wanted more of that. I love Julius Lester in this movie as Captain Boland. And this, like, that dynamic between Shaft as, Shaft, go get my coffee, I want it black.
Yeah.
But now the authority figure is also black. I thought worked really, really well. And in my mind, the whole film could have been Shaft going back and forth between Julius Lester and Moses Gunn.
Yes.
And just trying to negotiate this space. So that was something else I thought that was really strong in this film.
And getting him in that part, I mean, he goes back to Nothing But a Man.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And he was always an actor that was never really used as well as he could be. And no, I think that is, it's a shame that the Shaft movies and the Shaft TV show never got the opportunity to grow and evolve the way they could have.
Yeah.
And going back to, one of the things that I did when I was writing the comics was, I went back to the novels, right? And the movie, I talk about this all the time, right? Adapting a novel into a movie is not an easy thing, and you have to make decisions about what gets left out and what gets put in. And the problem was that the decisions that were made in the first Shaft movie, the things to leave out, were the things that would have made him, I think, as a film character, would have given him more legs, more longevity. And it's the fact that he was a Vietnam vet, the fact that he was an ex-gang member, all these sort of things that were all left out that I put into the comics, because that was when I read Ernest Tidyman's first novel. I was like, I'd seen the movie first. I'd seen it as a kid. And then I read the book, and it was one of those moments where, when you read the book after you see the movie and you're like, why did they leave this out? Why did they leave that out? And, there was beef between Parks and Tidyman, because Tidyman never wanted Shaft to have a mustache.
Right.
And in the books, he goes out of his way to make sure Shaft doesn't have a mustache. And it's funny because as much as we look at Richard Roundtree in that part, and he has come to embody Shaft, so much so that it was the detriment to the rest of his career, because he was always sort of typecast. But there's two actors that were, one who was better suited physically to play Shaft.
I was about to ask you about this.
And then there's one who is better suited physically, but also as an actor, right? So purely looks, just looks, Tony King
That was
is John Shaft.
That's right.
Okay, and
Hmm.
not the best actor, but I love him in like Report to the Commissioner and everything he's in.
Okay.
Sparkle.
Yeah.
He's Sparkle
Hmm.
and Hell Up in Harlem, and he has a presence,
He does.
but his skills as an actor, I would say, were more limited
Richard
than Richard
Roundtree.
Roundtree's.
Yeah.
The actor who was in a lot of ways, I think, born to play Shaft, and to a certain extent did play him, is Robert Hooks.
Mm.
Robert Hooks is who should have been Shaft. And every time I watch Trouble Man, I think to myself, because Trouble Man is Robert D.F. Black co-wrote the Shaft screenplay,
Hmm.
and then he wrote Trouble Man. And when
Hmm.
you look at it, oh, Trouble Man is just Shaft in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
um I love Trouble Man. I love the soundtrack. Marvin Gaye's soundtrack is like, oh my God. And there's something about the way Robert Hooks just moves differently. He has a different physicality. I think that Roundtree is better looking, but
Yes.
but Robert Hooks just looks tough and mean. And when you read Tidyman's books, Richard Roundtree is Shaft in the movies. Robert Hooks is the Shaft from the books, right?
Well,
And
that's what I was gonna ask you because as you you just said it. You said that. I don't know if you said this was factual or this is just sort of rumor that Tiedemann thought that Richard Roundtree was too pretty, basically.
yes.
And do you think? Well, first a correction. I think we said Julius Lester. We meant
Julius Harris.
Julius
Harris,
Harris.
Thank you, Mike Dennis.
Thank you, Mike Dennis. Do you think?
Oh, Mike Dennis, real black. We love you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Do you think Tiedemann wrote this script differently with Richard Roundtree in mind, though?
That's a good
for a big
question.
score.
Yeah.
I would have to go back through all my research and stuff. I mean, he fell out with MGM and the film people really quickly, and so um, I think a lot of the stuff he was doing was either sort of mercenary for the money or out of spite to try to prove them wrong, right?
Right.
And um, but I feel like Shaft, in my mind, he was just never like. Again, I read the first book after I'd seen the movie, and was always just sort of like why did they do that? Why did they have, and there's and here's the interesting thing too is that, like, every black actor was up for Shaft, right? James Earl Jones was up for the part, and there's so many actors that were up for it, and this is where I think there's this split between the books, which most people haven't read, and then the movies. And when you look at the movies, Gordon Parks gets all the credit.
Yeah.
Really,
Right.
gets way more credit than Tidyman gets. And as a writer, personally, that's where like sort of it kind of sticks in my craw. It's like a blade in between my ribs because it's like, well, without Tidyman's book, there wouldn't have been
Yeah.
the movie, right? And so I can tell you this. I've had this conversation now multiple times over the last 10 years of like, how do you make Shaft work on the screen again, right?
Right.
And we were having these conversations before that Tim Story movie got made, right?
Okay.
And it was like somebody decided that the Tim Story version was a better thing than what I was proposing, and I'd put together a pitch that had gone to HBO Max,
Oh.
and it was like let's go raw and gritty, and let's get I was pushing. There was two or three actors at the time then, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he was on The Wire. He played Chris Partlow, and he was who I
Whoa.
wanted like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think Nigerian brother.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
Nigerian
yeah,
brother.
Yeah.
And then about 2 years ago, after that last version tanked, I got some calls from people that were like, "Oh, we need to regroup and fix Shaft." And I was like, "Okay, but first go get John Boyega." Like John Boyega is Shaft, right?
Okay.
because and that's the thing. Richard Roundtree was really young when he made these movies, but he don't look young,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Boyega, I didn't think Boyega was right for the part till I saw they cloned Tyrone, and then I was like, oh no, this is the dude.
Right.
He's got it, right. Idris Elba has it too, but Idris Elba is a little bit older,
Yeah, he's
and
older,
and I'd
right.
love to see Shaft played as that guy who's like 6, 7 years out of the military, still in his 20s, and still sort of like brash and not quite an adult. I'd like to see him played the way Daniel Craig played James Bond, right?
Right. Of course.
Like
Of
a little
course.
bit tougher, and that's how I tried to write him in the comics, and yeah, I don't know, man. At this
Well,
point,
the
I would give
funny,
it.
Just real quick, just to you mentioned Chris Partlow from the Wire, played by Benga Akinabe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was the reason I asked because I do think there is a subtle difference in Shaft as a ladies' man in both. Like I think in the first film, John Shaft is actually charming.
Yeah,
Like you understand why people, but in Shaft's Big Score, he really is more of a pretty pony.
yeah,
Like he doesn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
And obviously that makes sense. But I did notice, and knowing what you said about Ernest Tiedemann's resistance,
yeah.
and I wondered if that was a little subtle commentary. It's like, okay, well, you want me to be the pretty pony, I'm going to write him like the pretty pony.
Which is what I think he pretty much is in this film. I think he pretty much is
Yeah.
just there for other people. Like that's why Julius Harris and Moses Gunn pop so much even more in this movie.
Yeah.
Because Shaft is kind of like just like the straight man.
Yeah.
In this movie, and which is fine, but I still think that like I just wanted a little bit more, a little window
Right.
into like okay, why you only wear leather?
Look, I think at this point,
I mean, the man put on a leather coat on top of his leather jacket
look,
with a turtleneck,
I think in a lot of ways,
and then he said it's hot.
I think in a lot of ways, Shaft's Big Score almost has to run from Shaft. Like Shaft, as we've been talking about it, looms so large that you almost have to downplay him a bit. It's like the legend of Shaft. Like I love what you said, David, about people who, when you say, I think Shaft's Big Score is better than Shaft, and of course people huff and puff, but a lot of times we're just so enamored with the idea of Shaft. But
Yeah.
again, when's the last time you watched from beginning to end the film Shaft? When's the last time you watched it, Lynn?
For episode 300 of the Micheaux Mission.
Exactly. Exactly. So
It's interesting to me because when we go, this is the other thing, right? This all of these movies came out at a time when movies went to the theater, and sometimes they would play for months. if
Yeah,
not a year
they would
or
stay.
more.
yeah, oh yeah.
That's true.
Okay. Then some were anointed with the opportunity to play regularly on TV. The James Bond movies are prime examples of that. 10 Commandments, Gone with the Wind. Some of these movies would be revived and they would play in double features, but they were, in a lot of ways, films were disposable for a very long time, right? You saw them once, then maybe you get another opportunity to see them a few years later, either on
There's
TV
no
or rerun.
home market.
But home video and cable changed, like the way we can revisit movies.
Yeah.
And so nobody was really thinking too seriously about the continuity of recurring characters, whether it was Shaft. James Bond thought about it a little bit, but you watch like those Universal horror movies, and a lot of them don't make any sense because nobody was keeping track of it. And I think that's we have to, when we can talk about these movies till we're blue in the face, but it's not like there's like these big committees like at Marvel trying to make sure that like it's going to be interesting to see how they retrofit Fantastic Four into the MCU when the MCU starts out and there were no superheroes, right? So and that's part of the reason I love watching these movies, because it's like you're seeing like the groundwork that's going to be laid 20, 30 years later in cinema, but you're watching like you're just watching movies for the sake of movies or for the sake of money, because that's what they just want
That's
to make
right.
money off of these things.
That's
So,
right.
um, but I love both of them. I love all three of them. I don't need to watch them regularly, although I do watch Shaft's Big Score more often than the other two. Um, and I think that I like the books and I like the movies, and I can like them individually and together.
Sure.
You mentioned Shaft Among the Jews, and Shaft Among the Jews wasn't originally a Shaft novel. It was a whole other thing, and then something happened with Tidyman and MGM, and he ended up getting the publishing rights, and they went on to make the movies. And so he took this existing novel he'd written, um, and he retrofitted it and turned it into a Shaft book
Look.
just to get even
At the-
with MGM. And then there were 7 books total, but of the 7, Tidyman actually only wrote 4 of them, and the others were written by a ghostwriter, and then his name was
interesting.
slapped on it.
That's interesting.
And Shaft's Big Score is one of the better of the book sequels. Shaft Among the Jews is fun, but it's like, wow, this is kind of batshit crazy. And then you find out it wasn't meant to be a Shaft book. And then the other ones, the ones that were written by ghostwriters, most of them it's diminishing returns, and it's a shame, because especially with the TV show, because now as I'm sitting back watching Kojak and
Right.
and watched all these old episodes of Columbo, like those shows are like,
Oh, Columbo.
first off, at some point, since you guys are doing this show, I just may do a podcast on black actors showing up in 70s TV, right?
Should.
Yes, you should.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Kojak has got G2 Kumbuka has been in 2 episodes so far. Janae Dubois was in an episode. God, who else? And Roger Robinson has a recurring role, but like G2 Kumbuka shows up in an episode, and he's like one of my favorite actors of all time, right? And so me and my boy, who we do these Kojak breakdowns, it's like he's episodes ahead of me, and he'll text me and he's like, Roger E. Mosley's in this episode. And it's like I'm not skipping him. I'm going in order. But
Right.
yeah, Roger E. Mosley, it's been an interesting thing. And I just love the watching this stuff and figuring out who actors are, and I don't know, because I haven't listened to all. You guys are in 400 some odd episodes, so I've got a ways to go to catch up. So I don't know if you've discovered this. I want to share this with you. Is this idea, and this is why One Down, Two to Go. Another reason why One Down, Two to Go fails miserably, right?
Okay.
It's not just Eddie Murphy. It's not just stir crazy. It's that in the early 80s, Hollywood didn't know what to do with black folks, right?
Yep.
They were trying to push us to the side, but what you got was, in between 80 and say 83-ish, you got what I called the black movie within the bigger movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the prime example of that is Ragtime.
Right.
Ragtime is it has, you could cut all the white characters out and still have this compelling movie. Coppola's Cotton Club is similar but not as good.
Yeah.
And you see this, if you're really looking, you're seeing this they're trying to figure out what to do with black actors. They're
Right.
trying to figure out how to make money off of the audience, right? And so you get a movie like Robert Redford's Brubaker, and like most of the supporting cast is like some of the best black actors you could possibly hope to gather in one place, right? And then you've got Fred Williamson and these guys trying to make this other movie, right?
Yeah.
Hollywood's trying to figure out what to do. It's not that they care about black actors or black character. They just care about the money that the black audience can bring, right?
Right.
And Stir Crazy proved you could just put a black actor and a white actor together and make a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a fascinating thing to look at, and I started thinking about it more after the One Down, Two to Go episode, because it was like that's also what was going on, right?
Yeah.
Where Lou Gossett won his Oscar for Officer and a Gentleman, like what, 2 3 years after One Down, Two to Go. It was 82, 83, somewhere in there, and it was like, come on, like this, there weren't great. There was a weird sort of time, but what you were getting was leading up to Eddie Murphy, was leading up to Whoopi Goldberg in Color Purple, was like you had Joe Morton and Brother from Another Planet.
Yeah.
There was so much stuff, and then you said something on that episode about A Soldier Story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and this is a horrible thing to say. Richard Roundtree can't compete with any of those actors
No.
in A Soldier Story.
No.
You know, Art J. Evans, come on. You know, Adolf Caesar, who was like 25 when he made that. I mean, he was so young. He's Adolf Caesar and Whitman Mayo are like the oldest looking young men. They're like the Wilford Brimley of black actors, you know. So,
But you're right, because like, and then we really got to go because we're running a little late. But A Soldier Story is a perfect film,
yeah,
for somebody like Richard Roundtree to just
You have been in, but he could not again.
couldn't find a lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't have played the other sergeant that told Sergeant Waters that's enough, because you would not buy them as equals.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a shame. But Shaft's big score.
Yeah.
That is. It sounds like I know you're a stickler for structure.
Absolutely. It's what separates us from the animals.
David, would you recommend that people see Shaft's big score?
Yes, I would.
Vincent?
I would. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, 2 out of 3 of us think that this is a better film than Shaft.
Very true. All right. And look, sure, go see Shaft's big score. That's 3 for 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go see Shaft's big score. And while you're at it, if you're fucking around in your bookstores, look for David F. Walker, all of his works, Bitter Root.
Yeah.
There are 3 trade paperbacks, I believe.
I think 3.
3, yeah. The 4th one will be out in the fall.
All right.
That'll be the next movement.
Yep, the next movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank
I
you
was
very much.
so hoping you in Sanford would do. Like, you could tell that this could have been a generational thing. And then it was a generational thing. And I said, I'm so happy it's a generational thing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I read it in trades.
I love the essays in the back, too, by
Thank
the way.
you. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
You done?
I am.
Because he won't let you go.
I know.
So David, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to find out all the fabulous things that you are doing and be a part of, they can get updates on the Bobby Part book coming out. Where should they go?
Best place right now is on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/David F. Walker. You can sign up for free as well. There's paid tiers, but that's where I'm focusing most of my energy, because Instagram and Facebook just want to take money from you, and I'm just trying to make some money. So that's the best place to find me. And then I'm on Instagram at David F. Walker, which I'm not using as much as I used to, because I'm focusing on just making the work as opposed to just talking about it.
No, that's right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And in case you don't know it, you are already booked for when we do Shaft in Africa.
Okay. Or any Fred Williamson movie. Look, whenever you guys need someone to come in, just let me know. I'll talk about anything. So
Okay.
I love the show so much, and it really is like, because also what you're doing is really important, right? It's this it's preserving history, it's talking about it, but it's not in a boring, stodgy way. So, again, like you need me for something, you know how to find me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you so much.